Of course.
And we know the status of
Yes.
this agreement.
I'm glad that the good senator had brought it to our attention, Mr. President. In fact, I was in New York as co-head of delegation on April 22. I've been advocating this for decades, since I was a young journalist, Mr. President. The status of the Paris Agreement is, it is with the executive. It is supposed to be transmitted to the Committee on Foreign Relations, chaired by Senator Cayetano. I'd spoken to Senator Alan about it, and as soon as it is transmitted to the chamber, he is willing and will sponsor the Paris Agreement. I know that there are several certificates of concurrence that are being awaited by the Climate Change Commission. The DFA is also very supportive of this, as clarified by Secretary Yasay during our budget hearing. And tomorrow we have the budget of the Climate Change Commission, if the good senator wishes to join this representation, so that we can have a briefing on the status of the agreement. We know that by November 4, this will come into effect, because this agreement says that if 55% of nations
Would
ratify it, then it would be into force. And so, while we are awaiting the ratification of the Philippine Senate, because it has not yet been transmitted to us, it will be enforced already. Let me just state, Mr. President, that our submissions of the intended nationally determined commitments are conditioned or pegged on technical and financial assistance, meaning the 70% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions that we had introduced as an INDC is conditioned on technical and financial assistance, meaning that those who will say, why is the Philippines supposed to mitigate when we are only a 0.3% emitter in the world? Itatagalog ko po para simple. Tayo ay isang mahirap na bansa. Tayo ay hindi naman sanhi ng nangyayaring pagbabago ng klima, dahil tayo naman ay hindi nagsimula nito. Ang Estados Unidos, ang bansang China, ang India, ang European Union, sila, pagsasama-samahin natin ang kanilang greenhouse gas emissions, ang sanhi ng pagbabago ng klima. Ngayon, bakit tayo magmi-mitigate? Ang ibig sabihin po ng mitigate, bakit natin kailangan bawasan ang ating pagbubuga ng greenhouse gas emissions kung tayo ay isang mahirap na bansa? Will this stymie economic development? The answer, Mr. President, is that no, this will not stymie our economic development. As I said, being a 0.3% emitter in the world only means that even if we are a non-emitter in the world, it would be to our advantage, because we can access the Green Climate Fund, where billions of dollars await vulnerable nations like the Philippines.
We thank the good senator for enlightening us on the benefits, on the wisdom of the Paris Climate Pact, that indeed we are a signatory, and it would be very good if we ratify this agreement. So
May I also-
my question really
Yes.
is the good
Yes.
senator supporting the ratification
Of course.
of that
Yes,
agreement?
Mr. President, I am not only supporting the agreement, I have also committed to the former UNFCCC head, Secretary General Christiana Figueras, who may have lost in her bid for the United Nations Secretary General, because the Portuguese, Mr. Gutierrez, won as Secretary General, but Christiana is a good friend. She was a UNFCCC head, and I had committed that I will help her in her campaign for Mission 2020, Mission 2020, which is to compel nations, especially those emitting greenhouse gas emissions, the industrialized nations, to abide by the Paris Agreement. As I said, on November 4, it will be in effect. In fact, 75 countries, including the European Union, have already ratified the agreement. It is historic that both the United States and China have ratified the agreement, and I think more than 55%. We already have about 63% of total emissions, if you put together all the countries that have ratified the agreement.
Thank you. That's all I wanted, a commitment from the good senator that is going to really push for the ratification of this agreement, as
Yes, Mr.
I will.
President.
I would want to be with you in that, the hearing, the committee hearing
Yes.
tomorrow, but unfortunately there is a hearing on the Committee on Justice. So, but I'll be glad to go over all the other, the
Yes.
documents.
I really thank you for your questions, because it is important that everyone understands that even if we are not a major emitter in the world,
Correct.
we, the agreement is not all about mitigation. It is about mitigation and adaptation. And adaptation means giving us the technical and financial assistance to do flood controls, to do early warning systems, to help our vulnerable populations, including our indigenous people, 15 million of them, of the 100 million population, to help the most rural areas who don't have electricity. There's so much that we could do with the funds that will come from the Green Climate Fund. In fact, small island states, Fiji, did Maldives ratify it? Grenadines, Palau, so many island states who are also non-emitters in the world have ratified it earlier than the Philippines. But of course, the ratification process may be simpler. Maybe it's a matter of signature of their minister, but here in the Philippines, the timing was not very good because the previous administration did not finish the process of ratification because it was a campaign season, and it was inked on April 22. There was only session for a few days. We could not tackle it,
No
and
time.
there was no transmission done to the Senate.
Thank you. Indeed, there's so much to benefit
Yes,
from that agreement if we so ratify.
And nothing
Thank you
to
so much.
lose.
Thank you, Mr. President.
thank you.
Thank you, Senator De Lima.